Cable Bahamas has always been considered the innovator.
People can have confidence in Cable Bahamas as a mobile operator because of our past history. We've proven to the Bahamian community that we are in fact able to manage additional services as a telecommunications company.
Customers expect the best from Cable Bahamas.
The technology that we bring is revolutionary technology because we know that the Bahamian public, they deserve it, and Cable Bahamas is here to bring it to them.
We are ready. Turn us on.
Obi Wishcombe wants to be PLP leader, but Leslie Miller says it should be Philip Davis. Calls renewed for campaign finance reform, while the BEC chairman says government's handling of the board is a slap in the face, plus a man on bail for murder becomes the country's latest murder victim. We've got those stories and a whole lot more tonight. I'm Bonnie Tude and NB12 starts now. Topping news tonight, one day after Tourism Minister Obi Wishcombe declared he wants to be the leader of the Progressive Liberal Party, Tall Pines MP Leslie Miller told NB12 he wants to live forever, but that won't happen. Miller says he thinks Deputy Prime Minister Philip Davis should take over when Prime Minister Perry Christie steps off the political scene, insisting he is the PLP's go-to man. However, Miller says the party should first hold a convention before people start announcing their political aspirations.
Well, I hope to live forever too, but that's not going to happen. He has indicated that he has a preference to be Prime Minister. I have no inkling to be nothing except the good member of Parliament for the good people of Tall Pines.
That was Tall Pines MP Leslie Miller's reaction to this Nassau Guardian headline, Wishcombe ready to lead PLP. The tourism minister said yesterday if given the chance to become prime minister, he would take it, asserting, I ran for deputy leader of the PLP in 2009. When I ran in 2009, it was against that backdrop, and I ran to position myself that when the Prime Minister Perry Christie moves off the scene, I can have the opportunity to take the country in a direction that I think will cause the people of the country to grow. Though he never suggested that Wishcombe is not qualified to lead the party, Miller said if anyone should replace Perry Christie, it should be his deputy, Philip Brave Davis.
I support Brave Davis as the leader. I think I look at Mr. Davis as always the PLP go-to man. Whenever the party is in trouble, who we go to? Brave Davis. Whenever any of our colleagues get in trouble in a legal sense, if anything happens, we go to Brave Davis. In trying to raise funds for the party to serve us on the right course, you go to Brave Davis. I think he has been around for so long and has dedicated his entire life to the PLP that he is deserving as the Deputy Prime Minister to move up to the next step.
However, Miller pointed out that there can be no new leader until the PLP holds a convention.
First of all, you can't be the leader of any organization until you have a convention. The PLP hasn't had a convention since 2009. Are we going to have a convention this year? I don't know. Two people would decide if we're going to have a convention, the Prime Minister and the Chairman. If we have a convention, we'd see what happens.
But the PLP MP says the most important question is, where is Perry Christie going? When pressed on whether he thinks it's time for Christie to move off the political scene, Miller said that's the Prime Minister's choice. However, he said if Davis ever wants to become Prime Minister, it has to happen now.
And one day he would wish to go unless something intimately happens or something drastically happens that would affect the party and the country that he would stay on. The next day is whether Mr. Ingram is going to come back. I spoke with my good friend Mr. Ingram, and he said that we need to stop listening to people saying things because he is definitely not coming back. I don't know if Mr. Christie is going anywhere. Most leaders never go until you run them out of town. Where he goes is his choice. Is it time for Mr. Davis to take over? I would say that Mr. Davis has just turned 64. If he have any chance of serving the Bahamian people, it has to happen now. Why would I vote for a guy who's going to be, 70 the next election?
The PLP was scheduled to have its convention in 2013, but that was postponed until November 2014. It did not happen then either. In the meantime, the party has held several mini conventions on the Family Islands. PLP Chairman Bradley Roberts said recently the party still intends to hold a convention this year and will do so as soon as Baha Mar opens its doors. As political parties prepare for the next general election, the regional director of Transparency International is stressing the need for campaign finance reform. Kyle Joaquin tells us more.
2 months after winning the 2012 general elections, Prime Minister Christie spoke to the practice of politicians using money to sway voters, and he encouraged members of both the opposition and the government to decide whether they will put in place regulations to conduct elections here in the Bahamas. However, with 3 years having already passed and political organizations clearly shifting into campaign mode, the regional director of Transparency International is now urging lawmakers to decide what they will do when it comes to campaign finance reform.
We've heard of money being rolled up into t-shirts, furniture, and refrigerators being given out in an effort to gain another vote. But how healthy is this method when it comes to determining the best possible outcome in a general election? Now, the Regional Director for Transparency International, a global coalition aimed at investigating and exposing corruption in countries, is encouraging Bahamians to push for laws that would monitor and control the way money is used in general elections.
It has to be transparent. I need to be able to know how much and for whom certain person is given, and then part of our work as watchdog organizations, civil society observers, would be to also monitor the decisions that are being taken if they are favoring in any way an elected politician in the future.
Salas was speaking to members of the media at an event organized by Citizens for a Better Bahamas. He says Transparency International can say whether parties should be forced to only use public or private funds. But the important thing, he says, is that the public knows who is funding elections.
We have identified, and this is no rocket science, no major discovery, that when money makes its way to politics, and especially when we don't know the origin of the money, the amount of the money, or why or for what it's being spent, it opens huge doors.
Days before the 2012 general elections, then Prime Minister Hubert Minnis said he was informed PLP operatives were in Haitian communities giving out t-shirts with $600 wrapped inside. However, the PLP also alleged the F&M tried to sway voters with jobs and contracts. The Transparency International rep says there should also be a limit to what can be given.
In countries like Mexico, Colombia, Guatemala, etc., it's a door that opens for drug dealers. No? So there are many candidates that are financed by drug dealers, and they are, of course, responding to the interest of the masters that are putting the money. Those are extreme situations, but in other cases, it's just business interest. No? So if I don't know how much money Mr. X is giving to which political party, I can't monitor, I can't observe once the person is elected how he or she is paying back to that campaign financer.
Two international groups that monitor the general election have already recommended the government create laws that monitor campaign spending. Reporting for NB12, I'm Kyle Joaquin.
Outgoing BEC Chairman Leslie Miller is questioning how government proposes to reduce electricity bills by 40% and says government's handling of the BEC Board of Directors is a slap in the face. His comments come days after Deputy Prime Minister Davis told NB12 that electricity bills would be 40% lower than what they were in May 2012, immediately after government's deal with Power Secure is finalized. Miller says the outgoing board has already reduced costs by 30% over the past 3 years.
I don't know where they arrive at those calculations. I know for a fact that since we have taken over BEC back in July of 2012, the cost has gone down significantly, around about 30, maybe 40% since we took over. Much of that is due to the lower oil prices, as you are aware, that has taken place over the last 6 months. How the government plans to reduce the light bill again by 40% from what it is now is beyond me.
However, Miller says he agrees that costs must be further reduced, asserting the cost of electricity is way too high in the Bahamas and is negatively affecting Bahamian consumers and businesses. He says the current board has been the most effective board in BEC's history, and the fact that government has left board members in the dark is an insult.
It bothers me that the board has not been, even today, been officially informed of anything relative to BEC. That to me is a slap in the face, especially when the Prime Minister in his budget address indicated that they are going to put a competent board I'm sure whoever wrote that speech for him didn't have the slightest idea as to what the competency is at BEC. So I'd forgive him for that. To me, that was a slap in the face to the board and the chairman, that you can talk with a competent board. We saved the Bahamian people in excess of $15 million in overtime since we've been there.
Davis said government is in the process of finalizing a deal with Power Secure and suggested that negotiations may conclude before the end of the month. He said government is also finalizing a decision on the members of the new board of directors. He added that the reduction in the cost of electricity is among the requirements for that agreement. However, Miller seemed skeptical.
I don't care who they bring in to run BEC, Power Secure, or anyone else. If you don't have at least some of the persons who were intimately involved in bringing BEC in order, how are you going to point those persons towards what needs to be done? It amazes me that you can walk in any entity with no prior knowledge and do what is supposed to be done. Maybe it's osmosis. I don't know what the hell it is. Maybe the PM and the deputy have the answer. Leslie Miller doesn't have the answer for that.
In other news, opposition leader Dr. Hubert Minnis has defended House Speaker Dr. Kendall Major, who has come under fire following a decision to allow Fort Charlotte MP Dr. Andre Rollins to address the House of Assembly last Wednesday. Labor Minister Shane Gibson and Deputy Prime Minister Philip Davis have both maintained that Major was wrong for that decision. However, Minnis says the House Speaker showed leadership. Simone Davis reports.
Following a heated debate in the House of Assembly on Wednesday night, which led to the resignation of Fort Charlotte MP Dr. Andre Rollins, Deputy Prime Minister Philip Davis said Major allowed his emotions to influence his decision, while Labor Minister Shane Gibson suggested that by making the controversial decision to allow Rollins to speak, Major was seeking to make a name for himself. Minnis said the speaker was only demonstrating something that is lacking within the PLP, leadership. He said Major was right because Rollins had every right to speak.
Rollins has a right to speak. The speaker was right by the rules. But what was even more important that the speaker said, and I don't think they would comprehend, the speaker said he has a conscience. And he has a heart. And the Bahamian people and the constituency of Fort Charlotte has a right to hear. He was speaking as a true God-giving man.
Minnis said the party tried to shut Rollins down because they knew he would have pointed out the mistakes in the flawed government, and they feared the truth.
The issue was, they knew that Rollins was going to say negative things about them. Rollins, just like us, would have pointed out their fault and their follies. They do not want to hear anything wrong about them. They do not want to hear that. They only want to take only positive views and positive ideas and nothing negative about them they want to hear.
After a scathing attack on the Christie administration and the PLP, Rollins resigned from the party, saying he would be a fool to remain a member after the way he was treated that night. The debate ended immediately after that, with no contribution from the Prime Minister, Deputy Prime Minister, or National Security Minister Dr. Bernard Nottage. The opposition leader also said the Prime Minister and Deputy Prime Minister's failure to wrap up the budget debate is insulting, and for that, the Christie administration should be ashamed of itself.
It was insulting that the three major ministries did not speak. The people want to hear from the Minister of National Security about the crime situation. What are you going to do? How are you going to convince me that I'm safe? They want to hear from the Minister of Works about urban renewal. What new policies have you put in place? Have you followed the Order of the General?
Government officials denied that the premature end to the debate had anything to do with Rollins. The opposition leader said regardless of their reason, the leaders of the country should man up and understand that the Bahamas is not for them, but for the Bahamian people. Christie previously told reporters that the government would reveal its crime plan through its new media platform, Stronger Bahamas. Reporting for NB12, I'm Simone Davis.